Hello there, Shortcuts. This is video 2 for the price list that will go out this Wednesday, the 18th of June at 9 p.m. Sydney time. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. As I mentioned in the last video, my record fair is in Manly on the 29th of June at the Hotel Staying at 11 a.m. Hope to see as many of you there as possible. This is the genre list, but the genre list with a bit of a twist in that this week I've got some really cool funk and soul records from the 70s. And then I'm going to transition to a collection of Aussie records that I picked up a little while ago that some of you might like. Now, I suppose I could have led off with some of the Aussie. There's some INXS and there's some Richard Clapton, and there's some of the Hoodoo Gurus and all sorts. But I've actually gone with this record as the lead-off record. This is Lynn Collins. The album is called Check Me Out If You Don't Know Me By Now. Look at her on the back. She was nicknamed the Female Preacher, and she was James Brown's most fierce protege. She came from Texas, and she was an incredible kind of singer. Came, I think a gospel background. I would need to check that. But this album was made with James Brown as the producer, and it kicks off this opening track. It's called A Foggy Day, and it describes Lynn going to the Natural History Museum in London and kind of devolves into this gritty, incredibly crunchy soul song where her voice is cracking, and it's kind of jarring because of the subject matter versus how it sounds. But I think that's what's the beauty of this record. Everything is up for grabs. The storming, Put It on the Line, which is a complete gospel fire and brimstone lecture. It's a sermon. It's a dance floor call to arms. James Brown's fingerprints are everywhere. The punchy horns, just so tight grooves. And I think a little bit of that proto-rap phrasing, that kind of talk singing that became a kind of signature of his. And I've got one of his records coming up where that's a really big part of it. I think that this is a really true kind of crate digging hidden gem. Rock Me Again and Again and Again, which is, I think it's on side 2 from, side, this one, Rock Me Again and Again and Again and Again and Again and Again. That was covered by, of all bands, the Human League, which is just pretty amazing. The band on the backing band is the JBs, Maceo Parker, Fred Wesley, produced by James Brown. James Brown, the minister of new super heavy funk. Just amazing. There's also a really lovely cover version of Try a Little Tenderness as well. I just love this record. I just think it's an absolute treat. And I was really, really happy when it turned up in the box. And I love it. And it's on People Records. It was James Brown's own label. Quite sought after now. So, yeah. I'm sure there'll be someone out there who will love that record. I almost let off with this, but I decided not to. This is the Wailers Burnin', Japanese press, complete with Obi. Get Up, Stand Up, I Shot the Sheriff, Burnin' and Lootin', Rastaman Chant. This is the 1973 Wailers record that really was the last time the kind of holy triumvirate of Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer that trio whose charisma and songwriting and I think probably spiritual force held the group together. It's the last time they all were in the band. Often went off and made their own solo records, and so this obviously came out of ska and rock steady, but Burnin' was the second international release, and I think it's on Island Records, and this is the one that really changed their trajectory. Tosh and Bunny Wheeler went solo and made records that many of us know and love, and Marley became what Marley became. This is starting to ease into that pop sensibility mixed with the roots reggae, with the likes of Get Up, Stand Up, but it's still effortlessly groovy. And the deeper cuts like Small Axe and Burnin' and Lutin are still steeped in that Rasta consciousness that they knew, and it's still pretty raw, especially when you consider it next to Exodus or some of the later records, and the percussion is much more urgent than in subsequent records, and I think that's what makes Burnin' kind of maintain its appeal. I love the sleeve, I love everything about it. Chris Blackwell's production for Island, I mean, it just did an amazing job. Great record. Okay, this is our only white label promo. This is Green is Blues, the debut album by Al Green on the legendary High Records label. That is the first of a run that went all the way through the 70s with the likes of Call Me and Let's Stay Together and some of the greatest soul records of all time. This is what got the ball rolling with Willie Mack and High Records. Not Willie Mack, Willie Mitchell at High Records. Willie Mitchell and Al Green is without question one of the great soul partnerships of all time, and this is where they got the ball rolling. And it has some really interesting things. Firstly, the sound is just beautiful. It just has a really cool kind of groovy sound to it, but it also has some interesting cover versions. What Am I Going to Do With Myself? Get Back by the Beatles, covered The Letter by Alex Chilton, who went on to form Big Star. My Girl. There's a lot of fun stuff, and so you get the seriously kind of groovy soul act with these melodies that you kind of recognize. And so whilst this record in some respects is a little bit more modest than some of the bigger hits, it's still a record you can easily fall in love with. And it's it's still got that gospel fire. Plus his voice is just ridiculous. It's just so good. I love it. Anyway, Green is Blues by Al Green, and that's a white label promo. Couple more, actually 3 more soul and funk records, and then we will hit the Aussie payload. This is The 8th Day. The album is called I Gotta Get Home, Can't Let My Baby Get Lonely. Look at this for a crew, eh? Detroit-based soul group, closely tied to the Holland Dozier Holland kind of legendary songwriting group. This album was a bit of a slow burn. The opening track and the title track is a stone cold groover, wah-wah guitars, vocals, a real dance floor hook. And of course, it didn't take me too long to figure out that some of these tracks were then sampled by hip-hop bands kind of up and down the page. And so therefore, whilst it didn't make a big impact at the time, for northern soul lovers, funk lovers, and DJs and collectors, it completely hits the spot. And in the week where we lost Sly Stone, and I will have some Sly Stone records in the weeks to come, this is as close as anything I have to that spiritual, political groove that that Sly Stone perfected. The Eighth Day, I Gotta Get Home, and that's on the Invictus label. What else do we have? Oh, I've talked about James Brown already. This is a US first press of James Brown Reality, 1974. It's kind of, James Brown is deep in his Minister of the New Superhero, super heavy funk kind of label, a thing that was on the back of the Lynn Collins record. This is still breakbeat laden, even more so than the Lynn Collins. It is a little bit off the 70s peak of Payback and It's Hell, but it's still great, and it's particularly certain tracks are this classic James Brown. The title track Reality is so classic. Chicken scratch, kind of high-pitched guitars, sermon-like vocals, talking about inequality and hardship, the politics really coming through. Funky President, People It's Bad, is which he recorded shortly after Nixon's resignation, is a very cool critique that James Brown had in his locker. He didn't pull out too often, but it's really cool. And it features one of the most sampled drum breaks in history. Eric B. and Rakim, NWA, Nas, and Kanye West have all sampled from this album. The JBs, again for the second time on this list, are absolutely razor sharp. Recorded in 1 week on the American Polydor label, James Brown's Reality. We have one more soul and funk record to go, and then we'll hit the Aussie list. And it's probably my favorite of the six. It is this. Odetta Sings. This again is a Japanese first press from 1971. This record has never been sold on Discogs. It's got the no insert because it's got the vocals and the story all on the back. Odetta was kind of a jazz singer, gospel singer, but also a pretty vocal voice in the civil rights movement. And so it was kind of unexpected that she would take such a turn and make a very clearly soul-infused and gospel-saturated record. And so whilst it feels like it's a commercial reach, this album is not commercial. There are some cover versions that might make you think so. So there's a cover version of Take Me to the Pilot by Elton John and Every Night by Paul McCartney, but these are relatively deep cuts. Every track is transformed by her voice, which is amazing. It's such a powerful voice. And the Muscle Shoals style horn arrangements in the background just give it total space, and it's superb. It was massively critically acclaimed at the time, but the record company did a horrible job at promoting it, and since then it has become a real sought after kind of cult record. First time I've ever seen it, as I said, that version, the Japanese first press, has never been sold on Discogs. It features Carole King. She plays on the record. Wilton Felder. It's just great, and it has there's been some interesting cover versions of songs. Buzz Skaggs and Tom Jones and others have done cover versions, and it was produced by Lou Adler, who produced some of Carole King's classics and also the Mamas and the Papas. So it has a very unusual kind of lineage. It's just brilliant. I love it. Anyway, Odetta Sings from 1971. Okay, I'm going to go through these Aussie records in a bit of a clip because there's quite a few of them, and many of you will know know these better than me. This is a band that I cannot get on with, but I know you folks out there love them. This is Cold Chisel. So I've got East and I've got radio songs, the best of Cold Chisel. Bow River, Cheap Wine, No Sense, Saturday Night. Plus new remixed versions of KSAN, Breakfast at Sweethearts, and Goodbye Astrid. Goodbye. Produced by Mark Opitz and Cold Chisel. And this is 1980s East. So really nice copies. The vinyl is in really good condition. I suppose Cold Chisel, kind of like a rites of passage for Aussie rock fans, but there's something about Jimmy's voice that I just can't get on with. It is what it is. The compilation was a big hit, though. I was reading that it sold a gazillion copies. I don't know if it quite made number one, but it's one of those records that you see everywhere, and maybe someone out there would love a copy. I've got a really popular INXS record and a more obscure INXS record. I've got Listen Like Thieves. It's kind of like their commercial breakthrough, but I've also got Underneath the Colours, which is their second album, I think, released just before they broke internationally. So it's a little bit darker, a little bit. The songs are still tight, quite colourful though. I played side one earlier today, and I'd never heard it before, and I wasn't expecting it to be quite as catchy and kind of earthy as it is. It sounds quite different to the INXS that I know. Still feels like Michael Hutchence is kind of growing into his voice. But then Listen Like Thieves is just stellar. This is the one. I don't have any INXS on my shelf other than this. I think this is a really good record. Produced by Chris Thomas. What You Need, This Time, Shine Like It Does, Good and Bad Times. I just think this is the one. And then, of course, What You Need became a US top 5 single. I think we sometimes forget just how massive they were in America. Incredible band, incredible legacy. And so, yeah, there you have it. Listen Like Thieves. All right. I have this is an Aussie copy, but I also have a Japanese vinyl copy of this as well. Okay. I think this next record is probably my favorite of the Aussie record list. It is Mars Needs Guitars by the Hoodoo Gurus. A fantastic sleeve. I think one of the better Aussie sleeves. One of the better Aussie records of the 90s, I think. The inner is in fantastic condition, as is the record. Bittersweet, Poison Pen, Likewire, Wipeout. I cannot stand that song, though. I don't understand how that was a hit. It's such a blatant ripoff. Mars Needs Guitars, and She. There you have it. The mighty Mars Needs Guitars. I think Hoodoo Gurus are a band that are kind of growing on me. They're a bit. They still strike me as completely unclassifiable. I've heard some of their songs and I go, yeah, they're a power pop band, and then I go, oh no, they're not a power pop band. They're something else completely. But there you go. Maybe that's what makes them interesting. This one definitely has more surf guitar than some of the others that I have heard. I'll slip this back in here so I don't lose the cover. There's a couple of records by Dragon next. Running Free and Ozambezi from 1977 and 1978. Of course, Dragon, as Joseph, and you know who you are, has taught me, came out of New Zealand, where they were a very, very cool prog rock band. They completely shifted gears and went into tighter, punchier, kind of pop rock territory with these two albums. Mark Hunter on vocals, his brother Todd Hunter on bass, and they became practically an Aussie kind of pub rock band staple from being this weird prog kind of, I don't know, I guess, cult group in New Zealand. So those two records are a real transition, and they became, really quite a really big band, as you guys all know more than me. But I was surprised in reading earlier because I don't know much about them at all. I think these two records are pretty much their commercial and creative peak, though. Very slick, very radio friendly, very confident. Really interesting band, actually. The journey that they went on. All right, both very nice copies. This is one that I hadn't seen. I'd seen bad copies, but I'm kind of happy to have found a good one. This is the concert of the decade held at the Sydney Opera House forecourt in 1979. And it brought, Cole Chisel, Richard Clapton, John English, Skyhooks, and so many more together for this kind of raw and energetic recording. It's, I guess, it's one of those... maybe one of those concerts where the people who claim to have been there far outweigh those who were actually there. But yeah. Apparently it was recorded with the Rolling Stones outdoor gig recording unit, which I think is part of why the sound quality is surprisingly good. Right, and I have two to go. I have Man of Colours from 1987, Ice House, fronted by the very enigmatic Iva Davies. And so they were already, they kind of pickpocketed most of the 80s with incredible hit records. I suppose this is one of their signature albums. I don't know if you would consider it the best, but it does have Electric Blue, which is a song that they co-wrote with John Oates, and I really, really like it. Very, very pristine production. Sold a lot of records, that did. I mean, I think I saw it was like 5 or 6 times platinum, which is quite a bit for Australia. I've got one more to go. This is a record that when I first got to Australia, someone told me was the best ever record released by Australian. It is Goodbye Tiger by Richard Clapton. I must admit, this copy is absolutely perfect condition. Looks like this is. Let me see what this is. Oh, here we go. Oh, and it has the inner. So it turns out, I was about to say it doesn't, but it does. Look at that. There's the tiger. It's quite an interesting album, this. It's much more kind of poetic and observational than I ever would have thought it would be. It's kind of night skies and hangovers and daydreams, and Richard Batchins was the presenter, and it kind of struck me as a little bit Lou Reedy, and it's on the the Infinity label, which I think has had some amazing acts over the years. I think this has become a truly beloved album. So there you have it. An Aussie list, as well as 6 soul records centered around 70s American soul, funk, politics, and James Brown. It feels appropriate in the week where we lost Sly Stone. There we have it. If you would like to be on the price list for that list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Bye.